Tourists come to Rome dreaming about pasta. But here's the problem. Many of them order it completely wrong. They ask for carbonara with cream. They think cacio e pepe is just boring cheese pasta. They order amatriciana without understanding why guanciale matters. And they skip gricia because it sounds too simple. But these 4 dishes are not random pasta choices. Carbonara, cacio e pepe, amatriciana, and gricia are the backbone of Roman pasta culture. They use many of the same ingredients: pasta, pecorino romano, black pepper, guanciale, tomato, and egg, but each one tells a different story. So before you sit down in Rome, here are the 4 pastas tourists order wrong, and how restaurants sometimes fake them. Rome is not just Italian food. That is one of the biggest mistakes travelers make. Italy is regional, and Rome has its own food identity. These 4 pastas are a perfect example. Carbonara is rich and silky, but without cream. Cacio e pepe is sharp and minimal, made around cheese and pepper. Amatriciana adds tomato and guanciale. Gricia is often described as the older, simpler cousin. Guanciale, pecorino romano, and pepper, but no tomato and no egg. A Rome travel food guide describes carbonara as made with eggs, pecorino romano, guanciale, and black pepper. Cacio e pepe as pasta with pecorino romano and black pepper. Amatriciana as tomato sauce with guanciale and pecorino, and gricia as guanciale, pecorino, and pepper without tomato or egg. Once you understand these 4, Rome becomes easier to eat. Let's start with the one tourists misunderstand the most: carbonara. Carbonara is the pasta that probably brings the most tourists to Rome. It is also the pasta tourists get wrong most often. Outside Italy, carbonara often turns into a heavy cream sauce. Some places add bacon, chicken, mushrooms, garlic, onion, or even peas. It becomes a generic creamy pasta with an Italian name, but in Rome, carbonara is much more specific. The classic Roman idea is simple: pasta, egg, pecorino romano, black pepper, and guanciale. The creamy texture should come from technique, not from cream. The heat of the pasta, the egg mixture, the cheese, and the starchy pasta water come together to create that glossy sauce. That is why carbonara is difficult. If the pan is too hot, the egg scrambles. If there is too much liquid, it becomes loose. If the cheese is wrong, it loses sharpness. If the guanciale is replaced with weak bacon, the whole dish becomes less Roman. The tourist trap version usually looks extra white, extra saucy, and extra heavy. It may taste comforting, but it is not what people travel to Rome to understand. A good carbonara should feel rich, but not sleepy. Salty, peppery, sharp, and silky. You should taste the guanciale, you should feel the pecorino, and you should not need a pool of cream to make it work. So if a menu in Rome proudly says cream carbonara, that may be your first warning sign. The second pasta tourists order wrong is cacio e pepe. At first, it sounds almost too basic. Cacio means cheese. Pepe means pepper. So tourists look at it and think, that's it? Cheese and pepper pasta? Yes, but that is exactly why it matters. Cacio e pepe is one of the purest Roman pasta dishes because there is almost nowhere to hide. Traditionally, the dish is built around pasta, pecorino romano, black pepper, and pasta water. The entire challenge is turning those few ingredients into a creamy, smooth sauce, and that is where many versions fail. The cheese can clump, the sauce can break, the pasta can become dry, the pepper can disappear, or the restaurant can fix the problem by adding butter, cream, or other shortcuts. This is why cacio e pepe recently became controversial outside Italy. In 2025, Italian media and a restaurant trade group criticized a UK food website for adding butter and parmesan to a cacio e pepe recipe, arguing that the traditional Roman version uses pasta, pecorino romano, and black pepper. That reaction tells you something important. Romans take simplicity seriously. Cacio e pepe is not supposed to impress you with a long ingredient list. It impresses you because 3 basic things become something much bigger when handled correctly. So don't order cacio e pepe expecting a heavy cheese sauce, order it to understand Roman restraint. It is the pasta that says, if your technique is good enough, you don't need much. The third pasta is amatriciana. This one is easier for tourists to recognize because it has tomato. And that is also the problem. Many tourists see a red sauce and think, okay, tomato pasta? But amatriciana is not just tomato sauce. The Roman version depends on the balance of tomato, guanciale, pecorino romano, and usually a little heat or black pepper depending on the style. The guanciale is not decoration. It is the foundation. It gives the sauce fat, salt, depth, and that unmistakable cured pork flavor. Without guanciale, amatriciana becomes much more ordinary. That is where restaurants can fake it. They may use bacon instead of guanciale. They may make it too sweet. They may drown it in tomato. They may cover it in generic cheese, or they may turn it into a basic red sauce because tourists won't know the difference. A good amatriciana should have tension. The tomato gives brightness, the guanciale gives richness, the pecorino gives salt and sharpness. The pasta carries everything. It should not taste like a random spaghetti sauce, it should taste Roman. Amatriciana also helps you understand how connected these four pastas are. If gricia is guanciale, pecorino, and pepper, then amatriciana is like adding tomato to that world. That is why tourists should not think of these dishes separately. They are more like a family. And once you taste amatriciana correctly, you start to understand why guanciale is such a big deal in Rome. The fourth pasta is gricia, and this may be the most underrated one for tourists. Carbonara is famous, cacio e pepe is trendy. Amatriciana is easy to understand because of the tomato. But gricia? Many tourists don't know what it is. That is a mistake. Gricia is sometimes called the mother of Roman pastas. It is usually made with guanciale, pecorino romano, black pepper, and pasta. No egg, no tomato, no cream. That makes it feel almost like a bridge between cacio e pepe and carbonara or amatriciana. Add egg and you move toward carbonara. Add tomato and you move toward amatriciana. Leave it as guanciale, cheese, and pepper and you have gricia. The reason tourists skip it is simple. It does not sound dramatic. There is no famous no-cream controversy like carbonara, no red sauce like amatriciana, no viral simplicity like cacio e pepe, but gricia is the pasta that teaches you how Roman flavor works. Fat from the guanciale, sharpness from pecorino, heat from pepper, starch from the pasta water. That is the entire dish. If it is done well, it feels deep and satisfying. If it is done badly, it becomes greasy, salty, or dry. The fake version usually has the same problem as the others: wrong pork, wrong cheese, too much oil, or no proper emulsion. So if you want to eat like someone who actually understands Roman pasta, don't skip gricia. It may be the least famous of the four, but it might be the most revealing. Now let's talk about how restaurants fake these dishes, because the problem is not only tourists ordering wrong. The problem is that some restaurants know tourists don't understand Roman pasta, so they make versions that are easier, cheaper, or more familiar. Here are the warning signs. First, cream in carbonara. If the dish needs cream to become creamy, it may not be using the right technique. Second, bacon instead of guanciale. Bacon is easier to recognize globally, but guanciale is central to the Roman flavor of carbonara, amatriciana, and gricia. Third, Parmesan instead of pecorino romano. Parmesan is famous, but pecorino romano is sharper, saltier, and more connected to these dishes. Fourth, menus that serve everything. If a restaurant near a monument has carbonara, lasagna, pesto, risotto, pizza, burgers, seafood paella, and chicken alfredo all on the same menu, be careful. Fifth, pasta that looks too wet or too heavy. Roman pasta sauces are not usually giant pools of cream. They should cling to the pasta. And sixth, no identity. A good Roman trattoria knows what it is. A tourist trap restaurant tries to be everything to everyone. This does not mean you need to become a pasta expert before eating in Rome, but if you understand the basic ingredients, you can avoid the worst versions. So how should you order pasta in Rome? Here is the simple rule. Start with one of the four classics. If you want something famous and rich, order carbonara. If you want something minimal and sharp, order cacio e pepe. If you want tomato and guanciale, order amatriciana. If you want something deeply Roman but less obvious, order gricia. And don't try to customize everything. Roman pasta is not usually about building your own dish. It is about trusting a formula that has been repeated for a long time. Also, think about where you're eating. If you're beside a major monument, research the restaurant first. Some central restaurants are respected, but random choices in tourist-heavy areas are risky. Look for menus that are focused. Look for Roman dishes. Look for places where the food identity makes sense. And remember, the best Roman pasta may look simple on camera, but that simplicity is the whole point. So, which Roman pasta should tourists try first? If it is your first time in Rome, start with carbonara, but only if you want the real version without cream. Then try cacio e pepe because it teaches you how powerful simplicity can be. Next, order amatriciana for the tomato and guanciale balance. And finally, don't leave without trying gricia, the one tourists often ignore. These four pastas are not just menu items, they are a map of Roman flavor. Egg, cheese, pepper, guanciale, tomato, and technique. Once you understand them, Rome becomes much easier to eat. If you want more food guides that help travelers eat better and avoid tourist traps, subscribe to Gourmet 7. Next, we'll explain why Roman pizza is not the same as Naples pizza.